always wanted to be as good as I can possibly be. Let me put it mildly. So in moving from banking, actually, why I left banking was because I was caught up in the collapse of banks and finance houses. And the next thing I knew, I was working in a manufacturing company. I actually was the finance manager for West Africa for like 4 years, and I enjoyed the job. Again, trying to be as good as I possibly could be. And from there, but I'd always been a trainer. I'd always taught. And so another side of me is that I want people to learn from me, and I want to learn from people, because I believe very much that to teach is to learn. So I went all the while I was in the bank, all the while I was in the company, the manufacturing company, I was always teaching, facilitating sessions, doing all sorts of things, working for multiple training organizations. Then from the manufacturing company, I saw the advert for the executive director, CEO of Corona. I applied, I got the job. And for me, that was a beautiful period of like 8 years, the end of which I was going to leave again. But I was asked to go and run the secondary school. It was like a transformational thing, and I think I did what I could again, always wanting to be the best I could. But this time now, I came into one-on-one contact with students, and that for me, the 4 years as the director of the Corona Secondary School at Bara, up till today, remains the best part of my life, because I was living in school with children. After that, I worked in other schools before going into government. I actually worked in Oyo State, in Osun State, in Osogbo, running a public school for the Osun State government. And so that was what led me into public service, where I saw that these children deserve the same kind of education that children who are going to very expensive schools get. And so that's always been the thread for me. How do I impact? How do I make things better? And then finally, how do I impact children?
Wow. Wow. I think your very first response to the question alone in itself is so much to learn from. And I think that if everyone think about being the best they can be, whatever they do, they're going to have better systems. So as a teacher, if you are thinking about the best you can be, ensuring that students learn better, how do I make sure each day I go to class, I'm focusing on being the best I can be without showing going to class unprepared. I think it's going to really help both teachers and school leaders, and even those that are in other industries, to show up with the best version and constantly improve as the lead as well. So thank you very much for that response, Ma. So I'm going to go deep dive into today's conversation. And I want to start with a very honest version of this topic. Every leader, whether running one school or an entire system, has at some point felt the gap between the team they have and the team they actually need. What does that gap feel like from the inside? And why, in your experience, is it so rarely talked about openly?
Well, there is no way you will get the team that you want. But the team that you get, what you do with it is what matters most. I've worked in many situations where I didn't change anybody. I didn't think I should change the people who were there until I had studied them, or until I see that really, this will not work at all. But for me to get to that point, it really had to be quite serious. I always believe there's something in everybody. And when I said that I'd like to make impact, I always try and see, because you are working with me, because I'm ready to work with you, support your growth and learning, then you are going to get better. You are going to get to the level that this job expects of you. So really and truly, I believe that when you get the team that you get, what you now have to do is work with that team, support that team, and grow that team. That's my personal belief, until it gets to a stage where you see that there's no point.
Mm. So would you say that gap that you always get to solve, will you say it's about capability, or is it what people can do, or is it something deeper than that, like values and vision, or fits in the organization?
It can be many things. It could be competencies. It could be that these are just people who are just unqualified for that job because they don't have the necessary theoretical knowledge, the practical experience, or even the workplace can dumb anybody who is clever down. I'm telling you, if you're a very sharp person and you work in an environment where this is not required of you, you will actually deteriorate mentally, I believe. And so that is why I said I would always give everybody the benefit of the doubt. Sometimes the gap is, so I'll put it that way, that the gap could be because of the person, the gap could be their person, their qualifications, their experience, and so, but it could also be a condition of the job. So sometimes you get to a place and you see that many of the people who are working with you, they really cannot work beyond that level because of the exposure they had on that job. When you have a job that is such poor quality, doesn't engage your intellect, doesn't engage you, doesn't give you the resources and the tools that you need to work, where your colleagues are not the kind of people that you can discuss and engage ideas with, you will certainly deteriorate. And so in that kind of situation, that is why I said I would probably give the benefit of the doubt and say, look, I know it's not been easy for you. You are working with me now. Now let's let's work together. Let me see how I can influence you and help you to get better. That's the way I look at it.
Okay. So what you said is it's clear, and it seems like most people believe that, oh, the best team, you can just manufacture them somewhere. Or I've heard leaders complain that, oh, I'm not doing my job well because I wasn't given the right team. And you've clearly stated that if you're not given the right team, you build the team the way you want to build. And so in your experience, which is harder to address? Is it skills gap or culture gap?
A culture gap, certainly. A skills gap, you can't, look, as they say, you can teach people skills. It can be taught, it can be learned, it can be mastered, you can support their growth, you can send them to school, send them for training, expose them to experiences that will build their skills and competencies and so on. But if there is an innate value problem, cultural gap, principle gap, values gap, that one is much more difficult, because then that's the fundamental to that person and their beliefs. But I still think that there could be a change, but it's harder than
Yes, it's harder. It's harder. Yeah. So it leads me to my other question, and it's about when you were the Commissioner of Education. And let me say that the very first time I encountered you in a virtual session, I think the video is still on YouTube, was during the launch of the Smartan Elite Smartan program. It was during the COVID-19, and that time I think I was in year 2 or year 3, still in university, very, very young, younger than this. And I listened to you talk, and I was really mind blown. So when you became the Commissioner of Education, you stepped into a system that was already in place. Thousands of teachers, administrators, and schoolworkers. I wanted to ask, what did you find when you got there, and how quickly did the people questions become the central question?
What I found actually is that there's a massive culture gap, so to speak, between me and them. The way we work in the private sector, and don't forget, I've worked in banks, I've worked in manufacturing, so I wasn't your typical teacher either. And so I found that there was a massive work gap, the way we think about work, the way we work, the resources that we have, and so on. But I didn't think people were bad. I just felt that we had to upskill them in various ways. We had to shift paradigms. We had to give them goals and so on. That is not same old, same old. You are not going to work the same old way. I'm not going to accept that kind of thing. And I will trust you. That's one other thing that I try and trust my staff. I will trust you until you betray my trust. Of course, once you betray trust, I will lose interest. I'm telling you, I'm that kind of person. But I will trust that you will do what I've asked you to do, and you will do it to the best of your ability. It didn't always work. Please don't get me wrong. I'm an eternal optimist, maybe the type that says the cup is half full rather than it's half empty. So it didn't always work, but it just, it was just something that I found became effective, because I was like, people this is a serious situation before us. You know, there's something about change management. When you do change, one of the first things you have to do is to get people to believe that there's a need for the change. And I think this is one of the first things that I had to do. I had to build a scenario where they had to believe that it's not good. You know, I had to say, look, I remember one year that there was when YA came out, and I did the YA for 5 to 10 years. Here you are, all of you, sitting here comfortable. But this is what is happening. You care that 40% passed. What about the 60% that failed? What's going to happen to them? Where are they? So I even had a team that followed the class from GS1 to GSS3. It was so shocking to everybody in the room. Initially, people felt I was exaggerating, blah, blah, blah. But again, it was true that of the 600,000 or so, or 300,000 that came in, about 40,000 did school sats that came in GS1. So there's massive attrition along the way. Children are leaving us. Where are they going to? This has massive implications for social cohesion. So again, just showing this is the reality. This is it. You can't get everybody on board. You will always have those who sit on the shelf and hope that you will fall down, on the fence and hope that you will fall down. You will always have those who are determined that, look, we are not in Lagos to look at the beach. I have no time for all this emotional wishy-washy thing. You will always have people like that. But you will also have people who will say, let's think differently and do something. And what you do is, I'm also a great studier of history, and I'm actually almost an expert on the Second World War. I'm actually, and I've read a lot about the leaders of the Second World War and why they were able to win. For many of them, sometimes you have to say, look, these people will never be on my side. Don't waste your time on them. You have to focus on those people who you can work on, who you can train, who you can support to get your project running. So for me, it was always, I have to do, the first thing is build the scenario of the reality and get them to know that if we don't do anything about this, this is what will happen. Like I said, not everybody's going to buy it, but you do that. Yeah.
If there's something I've picked from this, I think that it would be, as leaders must know how to paint a picture of what we want to achieve, and why the people are very significant in achieving that. What I've noticed about some leaders is some of these leaders don't even understand how to paint a picture of possibilities, that this is what we're trying to do. They are trying to fix the people first before painting the picture. So it means that if they're trying to fix people before showing the picture, they won't get it. So you have to create the picture and show them what you're trying to achieve, and help them understand the problem that is being faced in that situation and why it must be solved. Then maybe you can get a good number of them, or the critical mass, to buy into that vision and along with it. So once you get people that can buy into your vision, you are halfway into getting people to move along with you. Thanks for that response, Ma. And the word fit, itself gets used in a lot of leadership conversations, but rarely defined carefully. So you have operated across school leadership, government, and consulting. In your experience, what does fit actually mean? And what are you looking out for when you say someone is fit or someone is not fit?
Well, I think someone is fit. It's very important that somebody understands what you are trying to do. The person who buys in the vision, who has the competencies and skills for the job, is fit for purpose. So for me, look, the person has to understand why we have to do this. Like I said, those transformational change. You heard some people said, wow, I've been doing this job for a long time. I didn't even know that we had to get to a situation where we had to know how much it costs us to educate each child, or to understand that there's the worst attrition is between GSS3 and SS1, and a very bad one too between SS2 and SS3. Why is this happening? So a lot of people, they started to think differently. So I think the first thing is that the person must be cognitively capable. If someone is not competent mentally, you are wasting your time. The person must be capable, of understanding what you're talking about. Person must have there must be some innate competencies and skills and attitude and so, but attitude is the greatest of them all. And then, so I think they'll fit. If the leader lets them know that this is what I want to do, I will help you. If you are not yet at that level, I will help you to get there. But this is what I'm planning to do at this point in time. I think it's extremely important.
Okay, and based on what you said, I wanted to follow up on that because I have been a part of hiring process a number of times, and one of the things I've experienced is we've seen people who seem to be fit at the initial stage to do the interview, and when they get into the organization, reverse is the case. So the question is fit visible at hiring stage, or does it reveal itself over time?
It reveals itself over time. I too have seen situations where a very exciting candidate at an interview and you're like, yeah, we got him. And the person comes in and the person is a total failure. Because some people are very good at the PR, very good at marketing, at branding themselves, but they are not deep. But that again, I think is somehow a failure of the process of recruitment itself, in that you've got to find the depth of that person. I'm sure there are many tests that you can use. There are many ways you can use to find the depth of the person, because you've got to get to the depth of the person, and that will tell you whether it's a fit or not. But so like you two, I've been in many interviews where you're like, wow, fantastic, and the person is just a shallow type of person.
Because in one situation, I felt like, because I was part of that process, I felt like a failure. How come we didn't spot this at the initial interview? So it means that as school leaders, especially, let me say education, because we are talking about education. In the education sector, we are dealing with people's lives. We're dealing with the lives of children and students who we're looking forward to them getting better. So it means that we'd have to put in different mechanisms to ensure it's not the conventional interview of write this one. So after the assessment, then one of interview, then they're back in class. So that means there would have to be different ways to check for fit.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sure that school leaders in this conversation are learning from that beyond someone, a teacher is good academically, you'd have to come up with different ways of testing and assessing whoever is going to join your team, because if the person is not fit, it affects the entire system. So there is the other version of this conversation I want to go to, and it's not about people who are obviously underperforming. It's about people who are good, people who are loyal, hardworking, and well-meaning, but who simply not carry the vision. How do school leaders navigate that distinction? Because I've seen it several times. There are people who they're passionate about what they want to do. They are good about what they're good at their work. They are loyal and hardworking, but they cannot carry the vision. So how do school leaders navigate that distinction? How do they manage that process as well for people like that?
Well, I don't know why such a person who sounds so good wouldn't be able to carry the vision. I really don't. I really cannot envisage that situation very well. But I do know that there are some people. There are high flyers in any organization. There are also people who are steady, reliable. They are not high flyers. People like that, you support them still, a bit of training that they need, but they may not be leaders. It's not good to put such a person in leadership position. Even if the person is due, as our people like to say, I've spent 3 years on the job, it's time you promoted me. I don't believe in promoting people like that. I believe in promoting people. Now, look, you've recruited, the person has come into your organization, you know that person. It's now no longer a question of fit. You believed he was fit at the beginning, but he's shown himself not to be fit, but he can still do the job. So the thing is, there's even a table, I've forgotten the table, where it says you divide your staff into high flyers, into, people who carry the school, they are okay. Then you have the indifferent, and then you have the people who are just no good for the organization. So you've got to find where you position such a person. But I strongly believe that such people, you can retain them, but you should not let them lead, because if they lead the organization, they will. Your people tap from your energy. Don't tap from your energy. So when you have a boss whose energy is low, a boss who is okay, is competent enough at his job, but he doesn't have focus, he doesn't have a vision, he doesn't have passion for this job. He just does it and does it well enough. Then that person is not a good leader. He's one of the led. In which case, you leave him as one of the led. Leave him or her.
So it does mean that for schools that have very large, a large workforce, there are people who are not necessarily high flyers, but they just know how to do what they're told to do. But you can lead them there, not as leaders, but lead them to balance the system. At one point, I was thinking,
treat them well, pay them well, but they shouldn't be in leadership position.
Yes, but just at least. So at one point, I was thinking, why can't a school executive just fire all those people who are not? But as time went on, I realized that, well, you need some of those people to balance the system.
Yeah.
They are loyal. Yeah, they can do what you have to do, but they can never lead. So they're just okay with doing that.
Yeah.
Okay. So in your consulting work, through Leading Learning Limited, you have worked with a wide range of schools, from low-cost schools to elite institutions, state systems to private organizations. What is the people decision you see school leaders delay most consistently? And what is the cost of that delay?
Well, not position. I wouldn't put it as position. I would say succession is something that school leaders delay. First of all, it's natural to say, well, succession, I'm still able to do it. But if you don't do succession planning, whether it's within departments, within schools, within, within the top leadership itself, it's going to cause a lot of problems down the road. So what I believe in is succession planning right from day one. It doesn't have to be an elaborate system. It's a system whereby you start to look out for potential leaders, and then you start to do extra work on potential leaders, and also support others as well. Because you can't say some people, maybe they are not fit for the job you give them. You can transfer them, you can challenge them, grow them, and so on. But I see that many schools neglect growing leaders from within. And it's good sometimes to take leaders from outside, because they'll bring a different perspective and a fresh perspective, actually. But sometimes you need to take leaders from within, because then it sends a message to people that if I work here, I have a chance to get to the top. And that can lead to greater enthusiasm, greater passion, greater vision, and even greater loyalty to the organization. So that for me, I think for me, it's not a position that I see people not, I see that they are not building the next generation.
And speaking of building the next generation, I want to maybe digress a bit. I have a particular concern about the education sector, and the concern is I wanted to study pharmacy at the University of Ilorin, and just a couple of months to the admission process, I realized that I was passionate about education. So I withdrew my application and put in for educational technology. Now, people felt it was a very stupid thing to do, because why would you study education? But I went and studied education. And I also discovered that most of my course mates didn't apply to study education. They were given the course. And the same thing across different departments in the faculty as well. And leaving school, I also discovered that only a tiny fraction of those of us who graduated, even EdTech, because I studied EdTech, eventually practiced their tech. And at least among the top 5 best students who finished with first class, I don't think any of them are currently practicing education right now, but they finished with first class. Okay. So my problem and my challenge is this: how do we, as school leaders, how can we encourage young people into the education sector? It's a very big concern. I feel like in the next 5 to 10 years, majority of those that are in the education sector now who are getting old, they would leave the space. So how do we get young people to be part of the education sector and support them while at it?
This is interesting. You see, for instance, when people tell me that they dumb down the jam scores, why are the jam scores the lowest? You get the educational sector that you play, you get the teachers that you asked for. You get the teachers that the system is producing because of the policies and so on in the system. When when teachers are not regarded or esteemed in society, when teachers are poorly paid, when to be a teacher is to almost ensure that you are. Look, my parents are both teachers. At the time I was born, more than how many years ago? Nearly 7 decades ago, my parents were able to build a house in GRA, please, in Ibadan. My parents, my father a physics teacher, my mother a maths teacher. They were able to, because teachers then were good what you call middle class people who could get a loan, who could build a house. But nowadays, teachers are so poorly remunerated. The profession is not esteemed. So that at the end of the day, you can't force this thing. Let me tell you, you can't force it. If we do not make it a job that is attractive to a young person, we cannot. You can, even if you use JAMB and say 100, even if you say 50, even if you say 0, like they've done now, you will still not get good people wanting to come into that profession. So what we've got to do is address, it's not one strategy that is going to make education better. It's a multiplicity of strategies. Improving the conditions of service of teachers, and making it for teachers who go to rural, difficult to live places, giving them a juicy deal that will make them go and live there and teach there. Paying their salaries in time, ensuring that they are able to access all anything they need to be able to deliver. And I'm not talking about public schools alone. Some private schools, I've seen a private school where each teacher was earning 30,000. Now, what is a young lady going to do with 30,000? Not to talk of a man. How can you charge that? How can you pay a teacher 30,000 naira a month? So at the end of the day, the turnover was very high. She had very low quality teachers, disinterested teachers. People just came to while away time while they were looking for another job. So it's a multiplicity of strategies, and that is what I believe. One of which just has to be, how do we ensure that there's a career path for teachers? When you come in, you grow till you get to the top. And let me tell you, I give kudos to Lagos State. It wasn't me, it was before I got there. Lagos State, where a teacher can become a permanent secretary, because it's virtually there are only 2 or 3 other states that have done that. So if we cannot get teachers to get to the top of the profession, then people will just think it's a job for, I don't know. It's a multiplicity of things. Even the teacher training curriculum itself is ridiculous. Teaching is a double honors. If you do B.Ed biology, you do almost all your courses in biology and very few in education. So even the training for teachers is inadequate. What people used to, so what do you want? You get the teachers that you planned for, that you invested in, that you supported, that's what I believe. Honestly, don't set me off. I don't want to talk about this.
I can't.
Yeah, you get the teachers that you planned for. That's all.
Yeah, I can see that, and I can see that you are really concerned about this. And even as a young person, it worries me a lot. It worries me a lot because I have been constantly advocating and supporting young people who are in education. For example, I have a community I call Formida Africa. It's a community of Gen Z educators. So what I did was I got young people who are in education between the age of 23 to 28 and work in different private schools and government schools as well. I put them in the community. So once in a while, we get to have sessions that we speak together, we get to share ideas and then provide our support structure. Because I realize that as people come into that sector, after they spend 2 years there, those young people leave. And for how long can we keep watching young people leave? What would happen to next generation? I think our future is going to be something that we can't imagine right now if we keep having this. So I get that concern as well. And even as a young person, it's frustrating. So thank you, Ma, for answering that. And we also see that passion as well. So I want to turn to the other side of the equation about getting the right people. Getting the right people is not just about removing the wrong ones. It's about building, developing, and retaining the ones your institution needs. So in Nigerian and African education specifically, what makes that genuinely hard?
To build people.
Yes, to build them, develop them, and retain the ones your school needs. What makes it very hard?
Well, you know that schools are not and are part of the community, and with what people say, values have eroded, principles have eroded. So in that kind of atmosphere, sometimes, despite all your effort, you still see that people are influenced by the community in which they live, in which they work, in which they, or in which they have their lives. So you see that that's what makes it hard. The environment is not supportive. Let me put it of people building people up to be as good as they need to be. The environment is just not supportive. And we've talked about the teacher. It's all part of it too. A teacher, how can a teacher become really as great as they want to be when they are hungry? When they are not well paid? One of my teachers years ago told me the lady he was going to marry, he was going to meet her parents, and she was begging him, please don't tell them you're a teacher. My father will not allow me to marry you. So we've got to change that narrative. It's got to be. So again, that's why it's not working, because the environment seeps in and affects everything you're doing. But I'm the eternal optimist. I know that sometimes when you do a lot of work on people, they appreciate it. And anyway, when a teacher comes into a good environment, is well trained, is well resourced, is well supported, they actually love the job and they don't leave. There are some schools whose teachers you cannot recruit. They will not go, because they are well paid, they are well respected, they are honored, they are treated well.
Okay, sorry, my network was breaking. Can you hear me now?
Absolutely.
Okay, my network was breaking initially. So this problem is beyond what a single school leader can solve. Retaining teachers. I was at a rally for teachers.
No, sorry. I have to break it there. No, I don't mean. I just told you there are some schools whose teachers you cannot recruit. You cannot recruit. Even with higher salary, they will say no, because they really bought into that environment. But in that school too, if they find that you just can't gel with us, they actually very quickly let go of people who are going to pollute the environment.
Okay, so the way I'm thinking about it now, based on what you've said, there are factors that can be controlled because of the environment specific schools have created for their teachers. That so much that you cannot even take those teachers out because of that environment. And at the same time, there are also external factors that make it difficult for teachers to stay in the system because of the high cost of living and the conditions teachers go through. I was in a rally last year, and I met the teacher. Oh, he said, "Oh, I've been following you." He was coming to me. He said he has been following my work for a very long time. And so I asked him, "So what do you do now?" He said, "Oh, he had to leave teaching to go into the banking sector." And I asked what happened. He said, he couldn't keep up with taking care of his needs anymore. And the way I spoke to him, he was someone very passionate about education, and he really wanted to teach. Unfortunately, he couldn't just meet up with his own needs. Rather, he had to go to another sector. And I think that we might just keep losing this kind of people if something is not done. So if you have a question, everyone, you can type your question in the chat room. We are more than 30 minutes into this conversation, and we're going to run up in less than 20 minutes. So if you have any question, you can type it in the chat room so that I read the questions before we close this conversation. So I want to say something. Most of this conversation applies to a single school, what we've discussed now, but you have also operated at the system level, Lagos State, multiple state governments, national platforms. Does the people question look fundamentally different at different scale? And what can a state system do about it that a single school system, a single school simply cannot do?
Well, of course, the state has scale. I think one of the things that a school system has to do is to be clear about its intentions, its vision for the children, and then hold the teachers and the school leaders accountable. When you hold school leaders accountable, they will drill down to those below them. I think it's the what is happening is that we don't hold them accountable. When a result comes out in a school, all the children fail and the principal continues as usual. Whereas for that kind of situation, he should come and explain himself or herself. If you were a good leader, you would support your teachers. You would know what to do. You would have extra lesson. You would do things. Talk to parents to help you support the school by buying past question papers. Get the teachers to mark these papers and keep teaching the children well. A principal can do more than 20, 30 things to improve classroom teaching. So, but when we don't hold them accountable, so what I find is that at scale is more difficult at scale, of course. But I think one of the first things is hold people accountable. If you hold them accountable, they know. Let me tell you that in the public school system, you have some of the best teachers you can ever. Some of the best teaching I've ever seen was done in public schools. Some of the best teachers are committed, passionate, competent. They know their job. They are well qualified. And they've also built themselves up over the years. So you have such people in the system. It's a system at scale to hold accountable and then to try and identify those who are good, so that those who are good get promoted. The system is against you being good. Every 3 years, you go for some series of interviews and so on, you are promoted. So whether you are good or not, you keep pushing up. But I think what public school systems have to start thinking about doing is, how do we reward those who work hard? So for me, I think like I said, I tried. The first thing I did was to hold people accountable. How can your district? I will say this district is the worst. They have the worst results. Everybody there was unhappy. The principals will come to me. What can we do? I started doing training. Then we started training. And they took the training very seriously because it was helping them. We were getting private sector people in to support the training and so. So it is possible at scale in public sector. It's harder, but it's doable. It's the way I look at it. It's the way I look at it.
So in public sector, it's harder. And it's obvious because it involves complex systems. Different layers of problem. You need approval at almost every level. You push file here, and file them. And I think that for private school leaders who are here, I think it's easier to drive change within their system. But what I've also discovered that as easy as it looks to drive change within private system, no school can rise above the quality of a school leader. So when school leaders seem to be old-fashioned, and when I mean by old-fashioned is they don't want to innovate, they are not open to change, they don't sit down to question their school's vision and mission at every point in time, then the school is stalled. And I think that if there's anything I've learned in this conversation, I think at every point in time, maybe after every 3 years, after every 4 years or thereabouts, school leaders must sit down and say that, what are our values in this organization? What's our vision? Are we living our vision right now? Or what are we doing right now versus what are we trying to achieve as a school? And for most schools just have school vision and mission and values, and they don't even live by those values. They don't even visit those values. It's just there, nice to have on the wall. Vision is just a statement they read. Their core values is just what they read, but not what they actually live and measure. So do you think that there are ways schools can measure if they are living their values as a school?
Absolutely.
Both for students and for the teachers and the staff.
And so what you said down that I really hold on to and that I'm happy about is that to do that, it must be a collegial, system-wide thing. For instance, if you sit with the teachers and say, this is our vision, tell me what it means to you. Interpret it. Be surprised. Because, like you said, periodically, it shouldn't be 3 years. 3 years is a lot of time. For me, at the end of every session, I would always reflect. Let me tell you, I'm what you call a reflective educationist. At the end of every day, at the end of today, I will reflect on this. Did I make sense? Did I talk too much? Did I talk too little? Was I too evasive? Did I say what I should have said? Yes, at the end of today. So you have to build the system of reflection within your organization. So at the end of every term or at the end of the session, let's reflect. How did it go? Did we do well? What could we have done better? What did we do well that we need to keep doing? What do we need to drop? Are we living our values? This is our vision. What did we say our vision was? What is the meaning of our vision? And many people don't understand what these things are. I remember one of the earlier sessions I held in Lagos State when I said, at the end of 12 years, what should any child be like if they pass through our system? The God-fearing, articulate, tech-savvy, motivated, all sorts of things. Then I was very happy. I wrote all of it down, filled the whole board. Yeah, you can say all these things, but it doesn't happen unless you consciously and deliberately work towards it happening. Intentionality. So that many people don't know. That's what I'm trying to say, that they do not know. And therefore, the leader must be intentional in revisiting the vision periodically, in saying, are we still doing what we said we would do? Or we just wrote it on the wall so that people see it. So that, I think, if it's done collegially, you will enjoy your staff. I've had situations where I've had my staff, I told them, what do we promise every child who comes here? Tell me what you promise. If a parent is bringing their child into our school, why should they? Tell them why they should and what the child is going to be like by the time we work on that child. What kind of child we are going to give them. An accomplished, smart, tech-savvy child imbued in 21st century skills, creativity, innovation, problem solving. It doesn't happen. You can say anything you want, but it doesn't happen unless you intentionally now develop an educational plan that will implement your intentions. So that's why I think that periodically and not every 3 years, at the end of the session, or the end of the term, at the end of the day, you should build in the habit of reflection. How did it go?
For every school leaders in this room, and thank you so much for answering that. It's something that I think about a lot, about schools' vision, because I've entered schools and I see their vision on the wall, and I see what they are doing, and there's always a mismatch. I've asked school leaders or even school management staff or some schools. I've asked their members, okay, what's your vision and mission? They don't even know it. And for some of them, they have very long vision statements that it's even difficult for the staff members to even memorize or to even pronounce. Then for the values, it's not there. So for every teacher in this room, for every school leaders in this room, I want to encourage you. I want to, just like Mommy have said, I just mentioned, every term, let's sit down with our school's vision. If your vision is not in alignment with where the world is headed, you can realign your vision. You can recreate a new vision. You can recreate a vision. You can recreate a mission. You can recreate your school values in a way that reflects where you're going to and ensure that you benchmark your current actions versus where you're going to. Otherwise, you'd keep reproducing students who are not fit for the world that they're going to live in. Students who are in JS1 right now will be done with school in the next 5 years. 5 years' time is like 2031. 2031, the world will be a different place entirely. I was just discussing with someone about AI. This is 2026. ChatGPT became a thing in 2023. 3 years after, it's feeling like AI is doing what we couldn't think about. Then imagine the next 4 years, imagine the next 5 years. So school leaders, school teachers, ensure that your vision actually matches where the world is headed. So I'm going to take questions in the chat room right now. Mommy has been with us for almost an hour now. Thank you so much, Ma. And we really value your time. But let me take these questions. I'm going to start with Oh, the came with question for you, Ma. So Mr. Babatunde said, Mommy Folasade, what are your best pragmatic methods of supporting your team?
Well,
I think let me ask two questions so that I can.
Okay. Yeah, what's the second question? Hello? Hello, am I alone?
Hello,
No, you're not. I guess it's network.
His network has gone down.
Yeah, I guess so.
Steven, can we hear from you again? Well, Steven, are you back? Oh, what a pity. But I can keep talking.
Yeah, ma. I think he was about to read the questions in the comment sections. He just read the first one, and he was about to read the second one for you to answer now. So I think I can read the second one then.
Please read the second question.
The second question is from Mr. Morayo Abbas. Thank you so much for these discussions. The issue of succession plans for school gets me ignited. Kindly give more hints on it. Thank you.
Okay, let me take these two questions. I think Steven is back. I can see him. Okay. Now, the first one talked about my own strategies for growing my team. Well, I've mentioned some. And if you listen, you will see that if you listen very carefully, I didn't say specifically, but when I said I would call my teachers and let us all jointly reflect. Let us, in one particular school where I was a school administrator, I think we called it, I've forgotten the name. In fact, we had a lot of fun. We will sing, we will dance, then I will say, okay, good people, what went well? In your groups, in your teams, sit together, talk to yourselves, and we will sit down and decide this went well, this didn't go well, put it all together and start saying, so next time, what are we going to do? So that we come together. So that the vision and so on is not just an abstract thing written on the wall, but it's something that we all know. You don't need to tell people to cram it. It will stay in their head. When they live it, you discuss it and so. So I think one of the things is to work collegially. I always believe in working collegially. Work with your staff. You'll be surprised that they know some things you don't know. They know many things you don't know. These young people especially know how to use the computer in ways that you would never dream of. So you work with young people, support them. Especially young teachers, and grow them, train them, let them know who you are. I find that one of the greatest things that works for me is that I'm friendly. I'm very friendly. If I'm walking around, I talk to children, talk to teachers, play with this person, visit that, and so on and so on. My staff is sick, I visit them in hospital. I would do things like that. It's not because I don't have what to do with my time. It's because I want to build a collegial, happy atmosphere in whatever institution I'm working in. So I think the first thing is to be collegial, to be warm, to be hospitable, and to deliberately develop a plan. As soon as you've seen that there's this gap with my teachers, start to do training for them. And when you send staff on training, let them come back and train the rest. That is how you start building capacity in. So you build capacity in-house, you build capacity for yourself, and you build capacity for your staff as well. So there are so many things that you should do. You should observe them in the classroom, debrief with your teachers and tell them what they did well and what they didn't do well. And when you have observed their gap, help them to grow, help them. If you see that, what my teachers are lacking is how to integrate like teamwork into what they are doing, then you have a session on teamwork, or you tell them, go and meet the art teacher. He's fantastic at doing teamwork in his class. Go and watch his class and ask him questions. Have a panel discussion someday. Sit with your best teachers and say, okay, let's ask them questions. Deliberately developing plans to train your teachers. I could go on and on. And the second one, which talks about succession. What did the person want to know? How I would do it? Well, I think succession, you have to start looking at your staff and start deciding who are the leaders within your organization, the potential leaders, and you start to again develop plans for your to grow your future leaders. And growing could mean sending them on training, of course. It could mean online training, of course. It could also mean giving them responsibilities. Look, I want you to manage the sports day. Let's see how they do it. Let's see how they work with the team. Let's see how they give instructions to their colleagues. Let's see how they communicate and tell parents about this or that, about how to support them. You know, you challenge, but in challenging them, don't leave them. Make sure they know that at any point in time, they can come and ask you questions. It doesn't imply weakness. You know, you've got to let them know it's not weakness. It's because you don't know genuinely. I can't know everything. And so let's sit down and judge. So I think that those are some of the things that I would develop your staff and start to watch them, so that when if somebody leaves you, it can be sad, but you should know that there's a pipeline. So you develop a pipeline of leaders. It's important. Thank you. Any other question?
Thank you so much, Ma. Let's take one or two questions before we leave. As I got logged out, I couldn't find those questions again. But from the last response she gave about the question that was asked, I picked a lot of insight from there as a leader as well. Okay, Ma, what would you advise an employee who is trying to contribute positively in a system that seems quite rigid in its approach? When workload, that's one question. When workload begins to affect well-being and the employee is seeking a more sustainable way to remain effective without reducing value, but there seems to be limited flexibility, how can one navigate such a situation wisely and constructively?
Well, it's not specific enough for me, but I think in all places that I've worked in, I've always been able to go to my boss to say, Oga, this is going well. Please, can you help me? I'm finding things, I'm a bit overwhelmed. Can I have more staff working with me or something? I was always able to do that. But if you know you cannot do it, then you've got to find ways. I like the power of technology. Use technology to make your work easier. Like now somebody says summarize a paper. Go and pull the paper into ChatGPT, tell it to summarize it for you, and you then read over. And so learn how to make your work easier. Work with your colleagues too, to talk to your colleagues, ask questions and so on. Don't try and be an island. In other words, I don't know if I made sense of that question, but I know that the best way is automate what you are doing, relate with your colleagues so that you don't do everything on your own, and also let the organization know that you are doing more than your fair share. Now, wisely, cleverly, you manage your boss now. When you work with a boss, learn to manage him. Where is the moment when he's calm and you can say, oh God, please, we need to revisit this issue. You don't go to that person when the person is himself overwhelmed or busy. But when maybe you are laughing at something, there is a quiet time, they say, please, I'd like to really discuss something with you. So learn to be wise in the way you work with people. But don't fight.
That's a very perfect response to that question. Mommy said something. If you are very young here and you don't use AI, Mommy just give you tips, said summarize that thing with AI, you see. So there's another question here. Research has shown that that children learn more effectively. I will take this as the last question because of time. Research has shown that children learn more effectively in engaging and stimulating environments. Similarly, studies suggest that when teaching is delivered with enthusiasm, learners tend to retain more knowledge and achieve better outcomes. To the best of my knowledge, these two elements are often lacking in many parts of the Nigerian educational system, especially with the current security issues. How can we effectively integrate these factors into our schools and learning spaces to achieve better educational outcomes?
What are the two again?
The first one is engaging learning environment, and the other one is when teaching is delivered with enthusiasm.
Yeah. What more can one say? The leader of a school should then, that's why I said you should be supporting teachers if they are teaching in the classroom. You should go into classroom and you should reward those who are doing well. You should support, you should train them, you should teach them how to teach, because they are not teaching them how to teach in College of Education. So a lot of what we have to do for a teacher to be enthusiastic is difficult when there's insecurity and so on, I admit. But once a teacher is in the classroom and is a committed and passionate teacher, you will leave all that, focus on what you are here for and teach, and make sure that the learners enjoy their class. One of the best classes I ever went to was a school in the north. This teacher, there were no tables in the classroom. The children all sat on the floor. Man, when he was finished with his class, I wished I was a little girl again in his class. He was such a powerful, engaging teacher. He had built a big box of carton which he used for ABC, and for teaching phonics and sounds and so on. He called it his television, and he will roll it, and the children were clapping and singing. And when I asked the head teacher, she said, "That's my best teacher, that no child leaves that class without reading." And this was a school where the literacy levels were very low. So he did not allow the horrible condition in which he lived to condition him. He taught well. So I think you've got to look at the attitude. A teacher has to be happy with what they are doing. There is no greater job in the world than teaching, honestly. There is no greater job. The impact you have on children, it lasts. They say a teacher touches eternity. You cannot tell where your reach will get to. Is it the children that you teach, or their children, their families, their friends, all of whom are influenced by you, the teacher? So you can't afford to lose your, even if you have trouble from home or anything. When you get to class, you face the class and you teach. And the school is supposed to support you by giving you the resources you need to teach, the environment you need, and all that, and the training that you need. That's the way I look at it. You can't, when you talk about enthusiasm, it has to come from inside. It has to come from inside to love this job. So I think
things are not going as planned as a teacher, the job has to come. And even when you're not happy, I mean, I found myself that way. I am thinking about something, or I'm not really, I'm not having a good day. Then I'm in my office, because my office is open to students. Then you just see like 3 students just coming. "Hi, Mr. Steven, I want to talk to you about something." Okay, what do you want to talk about? Then they bring up this very unexpected conversation. "Mr. Steven, I'm not feeling too happy today. What should I do?" So they just come up with very interesting thing, and you just have to be there for them. Thank you so much, Ma. We are going to end with this last question, and we would appreciate you, and we'll leave. And the question is this: before we close, I want to ask you just one thing. If every school leader watching this session today and every educator who will watch the recording on YouTube takes one idea away from this conversation, I know you've said a lot, what do you want it to be? Just that one thing.
I want leaders to care for their staff. I want leaders to grow and develop their staff intentionally and deliberately, realizing the uniqueness of each teacher, realizing the peculiar situation under which we work in Nigeria, and therefore bringing forth all the empathy that they have. That's what I want leaders to do, to care for their teachers. Then when you care for your teacher will care for the children.
Wow.
And the children will. That's
wow.
That's
wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot to unpack, and I think that if you listen to that carefully, it's going to help you as a school leader, as an educator. I want to believe that even if you're a teacher, you're aspiring to lead one day, because what I've observed is that because you're a good teacher doesn't mean you're going to be a good leader. So to be a good leader, you have to learn to be a good leader. Honorable Adefisayo, thank you so much. Genuinely, what you have shared in this conversation is exactly the kind of honest, experience-grounded thinking that this series was built to bring into the open. Thank you so much, Ma. And I'm sure that everyone learned something here and they found this evening valuable to them. I'm grateful for your time, sincerely. When you told me yes, I was screaming in my room that day, and I told my team that you just said yes to us. Thank you so much, Ma. I'm grateful for your time, your candor, and the seriousness with which you approach this work. I'm really inspired by your work, Ma, and I hope to keep being in touch with you as well. And every one of you, Honorable Adefisayo shares valuable thought on LinkedIn. Yes, you can go and follow on LinkedIn and read from our work as well. To everyone who joined us here live today, thank you for being here. This conversation will be available on YouTube. And so please share it with every school leader, share it with educators and education practitioners in your network who needs to hear this. It is a kind of conversation that should not stay in one room. That is why we have the Praxis. Thank you so much, Ma. We really appreciate your time. And again, I'm really, really grateful. I'm grateful, Ma. The Praxis is a bi-monthly commitment, bringing this best thinking in African education school leadership into public conversation. So if this session has been valuable to you, follow me on LinkedIn, Steven Loya, or Instagram, anywhere, and stay close. The next edition is coming very soon, and it will blow your mind who are going to be having next and the kind of conversation we're going to be having next. I am Steven Loya, and this has been the Praxis Series Edition 2. Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you, my dear ones, for having us.
Thank you very much.
So let's give another applause for our guest, Mommy Adefisayo. Please join me together for let me see the clapping emoji, everyone. Let me see the clapping emoji. Some energy in the room. Say thank you. In the WhatsApp group, say thank you, Ma. Thank you, Ma. Thank you for being an inspiration to all of us. Mr. Benga said, Mrs. Adefisayo has been an inspiration to all of us. I work directly under her and I can testify to this. Keep up the good work, Ma. Oh, thank you, Ma. We are honored. All right, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your week. And if you're squeezed on meeting break, enjoy the meeting break. Make sure you relax and recharge for the next afternoon. Thank you and bye, everyone.